Perfect. Okay, welcome back. And so I know that I have about 25 minutes, and I'm the only thing that will be stopping you from having lunch. So I'll be quick. And because of the nature of the session, well, feel free to ask any questions and shout and boo and clap, whatever feels yeah. So I'm going to talk about a tool called JReleaser. It's a tool that is open source. It started very early this year, but we have a few things about this particular tool. Now, I'm going to do pretty much a whole demonstration of the tool. And if you have any other questions of what the tool can do, please feel free to ask me. So, like many of you, I write code and I host it on a Git repository. I'm going to show GitHub to begin with, and this could be a public repository or a private repository. And this could also be a completely private thing using GitHub Enterprise. So the very nature of the project itself that I'm going to show today is not very important. It's just a very simple Maven command line tool. If you run it, it will print out hello world, and that's everything that it does. So what is important is what's going to happen next. After you have built the project and you're ready to say, OK, we're good to go. Let's go into production. Depending on the nature of your project, you will use, well, if it's Kubernetes, definitely you go with what Anna showed us. Helm will be a very good way to do it. Or if you're like this particular tool, this particular application is a CLI, well, you build a binary, and then what? So we need to put it somewhere where people can find it, and people can install it, and they have instructions how to do that, whatnot, OK? So this particular CLI application, again, is very simple. And by convention for this project itself, I decided to follow this convention of my commit messages. You could use any convention you want. In my case, it's a prefix, a very well-defined prefix, as chore, fix, feed, something like that, and a message. Now, this will come into play later. OK. So if I run the application, again, trivial Maven command, just build this. And if I type it correctly. And this will compile the code, generate a jar file, and have an additional setup of Maven plugins to create these binary distributions. A binary distribution has bin directory with the executable, and the jars, and package as a zip file or a tar file is the thing that you see right here at the bottom. OK, so the next thing I'm going to do is very simple. I want to create a Git release for this. So I know I can do it by hand, but because I'm an engineer, I like to automate things. And so this is where the tool comes. And the tool is known as JReleaser, which you can install for many ways. I prefer to use SDK-man. So I can ask SDK-man for the list of current releases. And we'll see that there are about 8 releases and currently working on the latest snapshot. So we're going to use the latest stable, which is 080. And I can verify that I have that version installed by saying JReleaser-v, and it will tell me that that is the correct version. OK. So the next thing I'm going to do is, here's my project. Here are the binaries. Here's the sources. So the thing that I'm going to ask JReleaser is to create a release, like that. And I'm going to tell it, use all the configuration that you have at your disposal, such as the name of the project, the Git configuration, because it is right now in a Git repository. You know the remote, you know the default branch, you know all those things, right? The extra thing that I will tell it is which project version I want to release. So it'll be version 100. That matches the same version number that I have on the POM file. OK? So I do that. And we see a little bit of output, some metadata about my project. Specifically here on this line, we see that it's reading some information from a secret. Well, that looks very bad. Looks even better like that. From a secret path, this is where I store my GitHub token. Because you need credentials to talk to GitHub if you want to use the API. And a few more things like, yeah, it created a changelog. There are no input files, so there are no checksums, nothing else. And eventually says, I have created a Git release on that particular URL. Okay, let's see that. So I go back here, click on the app, and now I have a tag and have a release that was just released 43 seconds ago. I click on that, and I get the set of commits and the default assets by GitHub. Okay, not very surprising. I said that. I just did it locally on this machine. I didn't do it on CI. Good. Can I do better than this? Yes, of course. So the next thing I'm going to do is the changelog was very plain. Let's try some sort of formatting options. So let's say format. And if I click enter right now, it's going to fail, and I'm going to show that failure. Why is it failing? Because the release 100 already exists. And the tool will not drop or break an existing release unless you tell it you want to do so. You can override a release, or you can update a release. You can add assets, change the title, the changelog, so many other things. So what I'm going to do now is says I'm going to override it. And here we go. And this time, it works. And you can see at the top that there are some other options that become available here when it says is configuring, well, is functioning as A2 configure. So I go back here and do a refresh, and the changelog starts to look a bit different. I also have the names of the contributors, every people that can contribute to these commits. But I can do better than that. I built a zip file. I want to add it as a release asset. So I can continue adding more options, such as where's the file that I want to. Okay, so it's in target, and it's in distributions, app, zip file, this thing, okay? Enter. And now we can see it starts to calculate checksums for that input file. I did not configure any signing, so PGP signatures can be configured as well, but for now they are not enabled. And it added 2 additional assets to the Git release. So when I do this now and do a refresh, the changelog looks exactly identical, but look at the assets. I get the C file, and I get an additional file that contains all the checksums that were calculated. So if there are more input files, then there will be more contents in this checksum. Yet the changelog still looks could be better, right? So for example, what if we were able to use those prefixes to move the commits into categories? Maybe we want to add emojis. Maybe we want to add icons. Maybe we want to remove this thing that is already placed in a category. Wouldn't that be great? Sure, we can do that. And for that, I'm going to introduce the JReleaser external configuration file, because so far until now, we have done everything based on the existing metadata on your project. Now we're going to supply additional metadata that can do more things. So here's one file. It's YAML. I know. If you don't like YAML, who doesn't like YAML? Yeah. So we also support TOML or JSON. So there is some metadata about the project, some basic information right there. That metadata comes into play when we want to do more things, because given that this is a binary, and I'm on a Mac, obviously, if I want to consume those binaries, if I was like a regular user, I will not go to a page, like a Git release page, and find what is the zip file, download it, configure the paths. I would rather use Homebrew. Or if I'm on Windows, I will use Winget or Chocolatey, or this is Snapcraft on Linux. So there are package managers that allow me to do these things better. And those package managers require having additional files, the Homebrew formula, the scoop manifest, the Chocolatey manifest as well. There are other things. Those manifests, all those extra files, require metadata. And that's where we define this additional metadata. I'm going to show why we're going to use it in a moment. So we also see the release block where we say, yeah, we're releasing to GitHub. And I'm going to overwrite because I'm playing around. And I'm also going to sign any tags or commits that I make. I'm also going to join a discussion with their release. And that discussion is going to be posted on the announcements category. And I have some additional configuration how I want my changelog to be formatted. So I say I always want to format the changelog for every commit that matches this prefix, fit, fix, and short. I'm going to apply a label. So this is done everything locally with the commit information. Now that I have labels, I can say, well, given that set of labels could be more than one, I'm going to group them in certain categories. And I'm using emojis because I want to. And finally, there are replaces. This will take an input, some sort of regex, and you can replace that with some other content. And by default, the content is blank. So the net result is I'm going to remove the prefix. There's no extra thing that I need to configure. Convention over configuration. Moreover, I'm going to sign all the assets that I want to upload. And I have all those secrets already configured in my secrets file, not just the GitHub token, but my GPG passphrase, the public key, and the private key, all those things. You can configure them on an external file, or you can configure them using environmental variables. I prefer to use external file. Also, I'm going to create a homebrew formula for these binaries. And I supply two paths, two binaries there, the zip file and the tar. Now, you notice here, this looks a little bit wonky. Those are mustache templates. In essence, these work like variables. And these variables, these values will be evaluated based on the metadata of your project. So the distribution name resolves to app, and project version will resolve to whatever version I give it to my project. So far, so good? OK. So the other thing that I have is that I have set up an additional environmental variable called JReleaser project version. We decided to use JReleaser as a prefix so that it doesn't collide with any other existing environmental variables. Well, actually, that doesn't work. But if I do it as a variable, it will do. So version 1.0.0, all right? Here we go. JReleaser, I'm going to use a different command now, full release. And what this command will do is create a release, create all those package managers, Homebrew, Snapchat, Chocolatey, all those, Docker images even, and announce my project on any announcers that I may have configured. Right now, I have none. But here we go. We say full release. And notice that it doesn't say autoconfig anymore. It has some information about the metadata of the project, calculates the signatures of all the input files, uploads a bunch of assets. You can see that are the binaries, the signatures, and the checksums, and then creates a homebrew formula into a particular repository, which everything, of course, is configurable, but it's using a bunch of conventions and defaults. So when now I go back here into this release, and I do a refresh, the changelog starts to look much, much better. Long gone are the prefixes. Now we have categories. And I also have here the username appears. And I have all the binaries. And I have the signatures and the checksums. But we're not done, because I said that we also have a homebrew formula, right? Well, that, if you remember, the name of the repository is homebrew tab. We go into this place and now see that this folder has updated just a minute ago. And click on that. And this is a homebrew formula that you can just download directly with Homebrew. And it points to the URL of the asset that I uploaded. And the checksum that you see here is contained in the checksums.txt file that was also uploaded. So everything gets connected. It just works on GitHub. You saw it locally. You can also run it on CI if you want to. And you can also run it on GitHub Enterprise. But what if you are not a GitHub user? What if you prefer to use other GitHub services? I mean, other Git services, such as GitLab? Well, so here's the same code. Here's the same project. There are no tags. There are no releases. So I'm going to switch into another project here. And you can tell that is hosted right now on GitLab. And this project looks pretty much identical to the one on GitHub, except has two changes in the configuration. Now, the metadata is pretty much the same. The changes are that now I'm going to release to GitLab, and because GitLab doesn't know discussions are a GitHub-only feature, then I remove that. but the rest of the code, or the rest of the configuration, is identical. So with that in mind, I'm going to build the project once again, so get those binaries ready, the zip and the tar file, and issue the same command as before, so that's why I'm going up in history. So you see there are nothing fake here. Here we go, same command. Now, generates the checksums as before, calculates the signatures, uploads the assets, and then, after it's done uploading the assets, it's going to create a homebrew formula for us and publish it to GitLab as well. So when it's done, we go here. Notice this one says 0, refresh, and now it says 1. Click on the tag, click on release, and there's the changelog. Same as before. And the homebrew formula lives not there, but here. Here we go. And click on formula was just updated a few seconds ago and looks pretty much identical to the other one, except that, of course, the URL and the checksum are different. But we're not done yet, because GitHub and GitLab are not the only ones that provide Git services. There is also Gitia, for which here in Europe we have a service called Codeberg that gives you free services on top of Gitia. So same code, no releases, no tags. I go into Codeberg. Their project is pretty much identical. We have a few changes. Again, this time releasing to Codeberg. Codeberg and Gitia have no idea about discussions. GitHub only feature, so no discussions there. The rest of the file is identical, except for now I want to make an announcement. And that announcement is going to be posted to a Discord channel. We have many places to make announcements. It could be Twitter, Slack, Mastodon, Mattermost, email, and a few others. So for now, I'm going to use Discord because I have my own Discord server. Now, you may be wondering, where is the URL? How are you going to talk to that? Is it using what kind of credentials? But again, those things are supposed to be secret. In the case of Discord, we use an incoming webhook integration, and anyone that has access to the webhook, the URL, can send messages to the server. That would be bad, right? So that's why I'm treating that Discord URL as a secret, so I will put it in my config.toml file. By the way, that config.toml file could be config.yaml, config.json, or even config.properties, whichever you fancy. So with this in mind, once again, I'm going to build the project, which creates those binaries, and issue the same command as before, full release. So let's see what happens. Checksums, signing, upload the assets. GitLab is very fast. Creates the homebrew formula and makes an announcement. Something weird here, that should be an emoji, but we got some text. And are you ready for some really, let's do this really live. So this will turn out to be 2 messages, but that's okay. Let's go here and edit this, and then we say we're going to announce to Twitter, and I'm going to say active equals is always, and the message will be status is project version using those mustache templates that we saw earlier. So this will be actually project name first. Project name, project version, release live at boxset, if I type it correctly, Ticino. And what else do we need? 2021. There we go. So, oh, not that. Escape. How do you escape from BIM? OK. I managed. So here we go. Again, full release, right? And notice that it did not calculate the checksums again because the inputs did not change, so it's a bit smarter. Also, because the inputs did not change, the signatures were not calculated again. So it's a bit faster. Uploads everything, and now it says announcing to Discord and announcing to Twitter, all right? So here we go. Do a refresh here, And you see that now there is one release, there is one tag. We click here, change log, looks like the others, should be no surprise whatsoever. And then now we say Homebrew tab, and click on that one. And yes, the formula looks pretty much the same. And we go here into Discord, and there should be 2 announcements. And it had, by default, it will point us to the release. So we click there, we go back to the release. That's great. But I also posted to Twitter, isn't it? And give it just a moment. Here we go. Oh, something happened with the...
Single quotes hash.
Yes, it should have been into quotes. Anyway, but there it is. Yay, we got some release. Well, the announcement was botched, but it's live. OK, so this is the tool. This is what it does. It helps you get creative with the release process. You can apply this tool to your release process in many different ways. You saw the full release command that does everything for you. But if you only care about doing the Git release and nothing more, use release. If you only want the package managers and you create the Git release in other way already, use the publish command. Or if you want to announce to many different locations, then use announce, and that's it. There are a few other things that we have. So for example, the project is hosted at JReleaser.org. And if you navigate to this documentation, here it explains you what the tool is. It also explains you all the different commands that you have access to. So far, we only saw full assemble and release, but you can invoke any other command separately from one another. The tool expects to have the binaries already built with the same build tools that you already use, Maven, Gradle, Ant, or what have you. But it also can build custom Java runtimes with JLink, cross-platform even. In one machine, I can build as many Java runtimes as I need. It can also assemble native images as well. A few more examples. Well, the configuration, everything that you need to know. For example, if I want to know how to configure Twitter and I didn't know, just click here, and it will tell you, well, this is the configuration in YAML. But again, you don't like YAML? Maybe it's TOML. Maybe it's JSON. Maybe you want to run the tool as a Maven plugin. Yes, you can. You don't like Maven? You prefer Gradle? You can also run it as a Gradle plugin. It comes integrated. As a matter of fact, we have some examples out there showing a Spring Boot application that creates 3 native executables using GraalVM being published using JReleaser. So we use our own conventions here, and these things were built using GitHub Actions because we need, GraalVM doesn't have any cross-platform compilation. And we use the Maven plugin. Spring Boot is not your thing? Maybe it's Quarkus. Here is the same project, I mean, it's the basic idea, now built in Quarkus, released with JReleaser, and it has 3 native executables. Or maybe it's Macronaut, same idea. One trivial CLI application released with JReleaser using Graal native image. And like this are many other examples. Here's another application known in the wild called KZCuddle or just Cuddle. It's a Kafka Connect CLI written in Quarkus, produces native executables, and yes, you guessed it, released with JReleaser using the Maven plugin. So this is what it is. This is the tool. It's very flexible, and we are working into get it ready for 1.0, very likely in Q1 of next year. It has lots of features. I just showed you a handful of things that you can do, but of course, it can do more than just that. So with this, there are more things that I could probably be talking about. I'm quite excited about the tool, but I think that that's enough for now. I guess we're almost ready for lunch. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to take them. If not, also during lunch. Thank you very much.